I thought it was just another ticket at the end of a long, forgettable day. Work had been grinding me down. Deadlines, tempers, bills, and a house that felt too big since the divorce. I just wanted to get home, shut the door, and let the silence do what it always did. The dashboard clock blinked 8:42 when red and blue lights flooded my rearview mirror. My stomach dropped. I eased onto the shoulder, killed the radio, and sat with both hands on the wheel. Footsteps approached on the gravel, slow and sure. She stopped at my window with her posture straight under her cap, face calm in that unreadable way officers wear like armor. "Evening, sir," she said. "License and registration." Her eyes were sharp enough to make me feel caught before she even checked the radar. I handed over my papers, irritation simmering. "I was just a little over," I muttered. "A little," she repeated, glancing down. 76 in a 55. I rubbed my temple. "Long day. I run a construction company." I wasn't paying attention. She held my gaze for one quiet beat. "Long days don't make the road safer, Mr. Mercer." She walked back to her cruiser, and I stared at my reflection in the side mirror. Stubble, tired eyes, and the old silver ring still clinging to my left hand. I'd never taken it off. Habit was easier than admitting I didn't know what to do with the space it left. She returned with the ticket. "Court information's on the back," she said. "Slow down next time." "Yeah," I answered. "Thanks." Her gaze dipped to my hand again. "That ring," she said carefully. "Married?" The question hit like a thumb on a bruise. "Divorced," I told her. "Just never took it off." Something softened in her expression, not pity, recognition. Then she smiled, small and genuine, and it didn't belong under flashing lights. "If you weren't wearing that ring," she said quietly, "I'd add my number too." My throat went dry. She slid her pen into her pocket like she hadn't just lit a match, nodded once, and walked away. Before she climbed into her cruiser, she looked back, quick, assessing, and then her taillights vanished into the rain. That night, the ticket stayed on my kitchen counter where I could see it from the couch. I poured a drink, watched the ice melt, and replayed her voice until it felt stitched into the quiet. 2 weeks passed, and I still couldn't shake that roadside moment. On Friday morning, I stopped at a coffee shop near my job site. The place was crowded with city workers and uniforms, radios murmuring under the espresso hiss. I ordered a black coffee and turned. She was sitting by the window. No hat. No jacket. Just a gray sweater, dark jeans, hair pulled back, posture still controlled like the world was something to manage. Rain tapped the glass beside her. My pulse jumped like I'd been caught speeding again. I should have walked away. I didn't. "Officer," I said, stopping at her table. "I swear I'm not speeding this time." She looked up, surprise flickering across her face before that familiar half-smile returned. "That's a relief," she said. "I didn't bring my ticket book today." "Mind if I sit?" I asked. Her eyes held mine, weighing risk. Then she nodded. "Go ahead." "I didn't get your name," I said. She stirred her coffee slowly, then met my gaze. "Elena," she replied. "Elena Cruz. Ethan Mercer." "I had a feeling," she murmured. I went for the truth before I could talk myself out of it. That comment about my ring, it stuck with me. Her expression tightened. It was unprofessional. It was human, I said. And I didn't realize how much I needed that. She didn't smile this time. She just watched me, silent, like she could see through my jokes and into the empty rooms I never mentioned. Her phone buzzed on the table. Elena glanced at the screen, and the warmth drained from her face so fast it scared me. She stood abruptly, chair scraping. "I have to go," she said, voice back to pure officer. "What is it?" I asked. She didn't answer. She only looked at me once, sharp, urgent, like she wanted to warn me and couldn't. Then she walked out into the rain, leaving her coffee half-finished and my heart beating too hard for a man who'd just come in for caffeine. That night, I fell asleep on the couch with the TV flickering low. A hard knock at my front door snapped me awake. The knock came again before I could convince myself it was a dream. I stumbled off the couch, the room lit by the TV's cold glow, and crossed the hallway barefoot. The house always sounded louder at night, pipes ticking, wind dragging itself along the siding, my own breathing too close in my ears. When I opened the door, 2 officers stood on my porch under the porch light's weak cone. One was older, broad-shouldered, holding a notepad. The other kept a flashlight angled toward the curb where my truck sat. "Sir," the older one said, voice measured, "sorry to wake you. There's been a minor accident." My mind snagged on the word minor like it was supposed to make this easier. "A vehicle slid on the wet road and hit your truck," he continued. "No one's hurt." I blinked hard, trying to pull myself into the moment. "You've got to be kidding," I muttered. The night air hit my face like cold glass when I stepped outside. The street smelled like wet asphalt and old leaves. Water dripped from the trees in slow, steady taps that sounded too loud in the quiet. My rear bumper was pushed in, not destroyed, but enough to make my stomach twist. The kind of damage that wasn't catastrophic, just expensive and annoying in a way that felt personal. Then I heard a familiar voice from the other side of the patrol car. "I told you it's not that bad," she said, controlled but edged with impatience. I turned. Elena Cruz stood there with a clipboard under her arm, hair tucked under her cap, face half lit by the cruiser's amber lights. For a second, I forgot my truck entirely. She looked up and saw me, and her eyes widened in a flash of surprise she smoothed over almost instantly. "Mr. Mercer," she said, like the words had weight. I let out a tired breath that came out almost like a laugh. "Officer Cruz," I replied. "You really do patrol everywhere." Her mouth curved slightly. "Guess I have a habit of running into the same people." The older officer excused himself to talk to the driver, some young guy standing on the sidewalk with his hands shoved in his hoodie pockets, pale and shaking. Elena stepped closer to me, and the professionalism returned to her posture like a mask settling into place. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," I said. "Just startled." She nodded and looked at the damage again, then down at her form. "I'm going to ask a few questions for the report. Insurance. Registration. Any damage inside the vehicle?" I answered automatically, half asleep, half aware of how close she was standing. Her pen moved fast. Her voice stayed calm. But there was something underneath it, a warmth she wasn't letting surface. "You live alone?" she asked without looking up. "Yeah," I said. "Divorced? No kids?" Her pen paused for a fraction of a second. "I remembered the ring," she said, and the way she said it made my chest tighten. "You didn't see it today," I replied. "I stopped wearing it." That earned me a glance, quick, assessing, like she was reading a change in my face the way she read speed on a radar gun. "Good," she said, and she didn't explain what she meant. The radio on her shoulder crackled, a burst of static and a dispatcher's voice. Elena tapped it, murmured a response, then returned her focus to me with effort. "You look tired," she said. "I was asleep," I admitted. Then my door got hammered like somebody was serving a warrant. Her lips twitched. "Could have been worse." "At least I'm not the one in handcuffs tonight," I said. Elena's eyes lifted to mine. They held a beat too long. "Not yet," she replied, and it sounded like a joke until it didn't. The older officer walked back over, speaking softly to Elena about the report. She handed him the clipboard, pointing to a line, keeping her voice low and professional. I watched her shoulders as she worked, steady, controlled, like she had a practiced way of holding herself together. When the other officer moved away again, Elena stepped toward me like she'd decided something. All set, she said. Clean report. You'll need to call your insurance in the morning. Thanks, I replied. And thanks for coming to the door instead of towing it without waking me. She let out a quiet breath that almost sounded like a laugh. You probably would have slept through a thunderstorm inside your living room. I've been doing that lately, I said before I could stop myself. Her expression shifted, subtle but real. Yeah, she said softly. I could tell. The street went quiet in that moment, like even the rain was listening. Elena looked down at her clipboard as if it could save her from whatever was in my face. I saw you today, I said, keeping my voice low. At the coffee shop. I know, she replied. You left fast. Her jaw tightened. Work. That message you got, I added, and hated how jealous it sounded. Elena's eyes flicked up. Don't, she said, calm but firm. I swallowed and nodded. Okay. Her radio crackled again, sharper this time, urgent enough that her shoulders stiffened. She pressed the button, responded, then exhaled through her nose like she was forcing herself back into the job. Duty calls, she said. Always, I replied. She took one step away, then stopped. The cruiser's headlights cut across her face, and I saw something there that didn't belong in uniform. Hesitation, conflict, something personal pressing against the professional. You should get some sleep, Ethan, she said quietly. Hearing my name like that made my throat tighten. She turned as if she meant to leave, then glanced back over her shoulder. And keep your speed under 55, she added, but her voice wasn't teasing now. It sounded like a warning. Elena got into her cruiser, lights flashing once as she pulled away, and I stood on my porch watching her disappear into the wet darkness. I didn't move until my phone buzzed in my hand. The number was unknown. The phone buzzed again before I could talk myself out of opening the message. Unknown number. Next time, coffee's on me. I stared at the screen until the words stopped feeling unreal. My thumb hovered, then pulled back. I didn't answer that night. I read it 10 times, set the phone down, picked it back up, and let sleep take me with a smile I couldn't remember earning. By morning, the nerves hit. I typed and deleted more drafts than I cared to admit. Too formal felt cold. Too casual felt reckless. Eventually, I sent the truth without dressing it up. Ethan, deal. Her reply came 2 minutes later. Elena, Saturday, 10 a.m. Harbor Cafe. Saturday arrived faster than I expected. I shaved twice, changed shirts 3 times, and showed up early like a man who didn't trust his own confidence. The cafe smelled like coffee and baked bread, sunlight cutting through the front windows in pale stripes. When Elena walked in, the room shifted for me. She wasn't in uniform. No badge. No radio. Just a white blouse, dark jeans, and a soft jacket that moved when she did. Her hair was loose, framing her face in a way that made me forget how to stand. Hey, I said, rising too fast. She smiled. Just Elena today. We ordered coffee and took a table by the window. At first, we stayed light, work stories, small jokes, easy ground. She told me about traffic stops that went sideways. I told her about clients who thought deadlines were suggestions. It flowed without effort. Then the tone changed. Elena stirred her coffee longer than necessary before speaking. You mentioned your divorce before, she said. What happened? I didn't dodge it. We grew quiet, I said. Years of missed dinners and long days. One morning I realized we hadn't laughed together in months. She met someone else. Elena nodded, eyes steady. Mine wasn't like that, she said. He said I brought the job home with me. One day I came back to an empty apartment and a note on the counter. Silence settled between us, not heavy, just honest. People moved past the window outside, living their own lives. unaware of the way two strangers were laying down old armor over coffee. "I think that's why I said that thing about your ring," Elena said quietly. "It was half a joke and half something I shouldn't have felt." "I'm glad you said it," I replied. Her cheeks warmed slightly, and she looked down at her cup. "You're hard to read," she said. "I deal with people all day. I can usually tell what they want." "I'm still figuring that out," I said. "But I know this feels calm." She smiled then, real and unguarded. "That's good to hear." We talked for 2 hours without noticing the time. Music, childhood, her growing up in New Mexico, my half-buried dream of fixing an old cabin in the mountains. Every subject landed softly, like it belonged there. Her phone buzzed, and the spell broke. She sighed. "Afternoon shift." "Figures," I said. She stood, pulled on her jacket, and hesitated. "I don't usually mix work and personal life," she said. "But I'd like to see you again." "Dinner," I said before my courage vanished. Her smile widened. "It's a date." Outside, the air was crisp. At her car, she turned toward me and reached out. Her fingers brushed mine, light but deliberate, and the contact sent a quiet jolt through my chest. "I'm glad you didn't text something stupid that night," she said. "I almost did," I admitted. She laughed softly. "I might have written you a ticket." "For bad flirting?" "Probably," she said. "But maybe I'd let you off with a warning." She drove away, leaving me standing there with a grin I couldn't wipe off. 3 months passed like that. Texts in the morning, calls during her breaks, late dinners when our schedules allowed. It wasn't fast or dramatic. It was steady, real. I learned the way she took her coffee too sweet, the way she checked exits without thinking, the way she hummed before answering her radio. One Friday, I asked her to meet me at a diner on the edge of town, near the intersection where she'd first pulled me over. When she arrived, still in her patrol jacket, tired but smiling, I slid a small envelope across the table. "What's this?" she asked. "Open it." Inside was a photocopy of my original traffic ticket, edited in my handwriting. "Fine for stealing my attention. Payment, 1 dinner every Friday." She laughed, quiet and genuine. "You kept the original, framed it." Elena leaned back, studying me. "You've changed," she said. "You seem lighter." "You had something to do with that," I replied. She reached across the table and took my hand, her grip warm and steady. That was the moment I realized how much I was already in. Later, outside by her car, she stepped closer, close enough that the world narrowed to the space between us. "You know," she said softly, "the night I stopped you, I was ready to quit my job." Her voice caught, just slightly. I opened my mouth to answer when her radio crackled, sharp and urgent. Her eyes shifted, duty pulling her away again. The radio crackled again, louder this time, and Elena's shoulders tightened like a switch had flipped. She pressed the button, answered with clipped precision, and the moment we'd been standing in vanished behind duty. "I have to go," she said, already stepping back. I nodded, forcing a smile. "I know." She hesitated, looking at me the way she had that first night on the roadside, like she wanted to say something she wasn't allowed to. Then she turned and walked to her cruiser, the lights flashing once before disappearing down the street. I stood there longer than I needed to, hands in my pockets, listening to the hum of traffic and realizing how quickly she'd become part of my life. A few weeks later, Elena finally took time off. We drove up into the mountains early on a Friday morning, the city thinning behind us as the air grew cleaner and colder. I showed her the cabin I'd bought years ago and never finished. Unfinished walls, crooked shelves, dust layered thick enough to write regrets into. She took one look around and shook her head. "You live like this." "I had plans," I said. "I just stopped believing I'd get to them." She rolled up her sleeves without another word and grabbed a paintbrush. We spent the weekend fixing what we could. Painting, hammering, cooking food that barely qualified as meals, laughing at mistakes instead of apologizing for them. At night, we sat on the porch wrapped in blankets, the forest quiet around us, stars cutting through the dark. By Sunday evening, the cabin looked less broken. So did I. We stood on the porch watching the sun drop behind the ridge, orange light slipping through the trees. Elena leaned into me, her head resting against my shoulder. "You know," she said, "if I told anyone how we met, they wouldn't believe it." "That's okay," I replied. "It doesn't have to sound good. It just has to be true." She squeezed my hand. "True is enough." A few months later, life settled into something steady. She kept working long shifts. I kept running my business. We learned how to exist together without losing ourselves. Some nights were late dinners. Some were quiet nights in. Sometimes duty interrupted us. Sometimes it didn't. One evening, as we drove back from the cabin, rain streaking across the windshield, Elena reached over and rested her hand on my thigh. "You still have that ticket?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Why?" She smiled faintly. "Just checking." When we got home, she kicked off her boots and leaned against the counter while I poured us drinks. The house felt different now. Not loud, not crowded, just alive in a way it hadn't been since my marriage ended. "Elena," I said, turning toward her. She looked up. "Yeah." "I don't need everything figured out," I told her. "I just need to keep choosing this." She set her glass down and crossed the room, stopping in front of me. "Good," she said. "Because that's what I'm doing too." I kissed her then, slow and certain, not because it was dramatic, but because it felt inevitable. Weeks later, spring arrived in the city. One afternoon, we stood in the yard planting flowers she'd picked out, her hands in the dirt, hair pulled back, radio clipped to her belt even on her day off. She caught me watching her and raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Nothing," I said. "Just thinking about how strange it is." She straightened, wiping her hands on her jeans. "What is?" "How close I came to missing all of this." She stepped closer and brushed dirt from my sleeve. "You didn't miss it," she said. "You just had to stop long enough to notice." That night, after she fell asleep beside me, I lay awake listening to the quiet. Not the hollow quiet I used to dread, but a settled one, like the world finally exhaled. On the kitchen counter, the old traffic ticket sat framed like a joke only I understood. It wasn't a reminder of a mistake anymore. It was proof that sometimes life doesn't warn you or prepare you. Sometimes it just pulls you over and changes everything.